Today I'm interviewing my former boss, Mark Gibson, National Sales Manager at First Internet Bank, a 4-year-old shop that's already claimed a spot in the top 10 most active 7A lenders in the country with over $450 million in 7A authorizations last fiscal year. Now, like many of our guests, Mark started at the money store. Then he was at US Bank for well over a decade, and then he went to ReadyCap, and that's where we met. And without that particular experience, Mark says he would not have been able to scale a shop to $400 million the way that he did. So, exactly what was it that he learned during that time that made him better prepared to ramp up a top tier 7A lender? Stick around, let's find out. If you're an SBA BDO, you're probably getting multiple calls every week from recruiters telling you about an amazing opportunity at an incredible shop with an open credit box and a strong comp plan. You got to at least hear them out, right? The truth is, most good BDOs can't move because they'd be leaving too much on the table for it to make sense. But alas, all good things must come to an end. When that time comes, how do you decide that critical next step? You need to talk to an industry insider who knows the market inside and out, an advisor that can cut through all the BS and tell you what it's really like to be a BDO at this bank or at that bank. Baker Lewis has 30 years experience, not just in recruiting, but in every aspect of SBA lending. They know the business and they are committed to helping people make the right move, even if that means they don't get a placement fee. If the time has come for you to consider a move, I'd encourage you to partner with an advocate like Baker Lewis, who will help you evaluate the market the way they would if they were making the move. An agent who can help you get the deal you didn't think was possible. Let me tell you folks, anything is possible. Call Baker Lewis. Well, welcome to the internet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Back to the internet.
It's going to be fun catching up. We used to work together. We'll talk about all that stuff, but I want to just start with kind of your role here as National Sales Manager at First Internet Bank, which is kind of, interesting because there's not like a director of SBA. That's kind of like, is that you?
It's me. Yes, of course.
So why did you go and make yourself a national sales manager, not like a director?
Because Nicole Lorch is our president and also my boss. And when we were talking about building this thing, her first question to me after we decided to work together was, "So do you want to be president?" And my response immediately was, "Well, not really, because then I had to go get me. I had to go find me out there," which is not the case. I'm more about building teams and things like that. And also, I felt that in a shop like this, it would be better if we were a little bit flatter. And I always feel that a shop that has shared responsibility between the marketing side and credit side is the best type of shop that you can run. If you run too heavy on the credit side, if that's who you're about, if that's who's running the shop, you have issues. If you have too much sales running the shop, that's issues. So David Bybee, who is our chief credit officer, and myself, we try to collaborate on pretty much every decision that we make going forward. That way we both own it.
Okay, so that's kind of.
And then Nicole is technically, she's the vote. She's the extra vote in case we need one.
Okay.
Which we've never had to do, which is good.
Well, it seems like a pretty lean operation.
Very lean.
You're top 10 lender.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm going to get into all that, but I want to go back to the early days when you were talking to Nicole and kind of you were coming in and talking about coming in. Like, what was that vision that you laid out?
Going back just to the bank itself, the bank is our owner, our leader, David is a fintech guy by heart. So the one thing he didn't have in this bank was an SBA department. So that's one thing they wanted to do. They didn't really care about what type of deals. It wasn't about real estate because they have a massive real estate group. They do like CVSs and things like that, these developer deals. So it was more about small business and entrepreneurship. So that was right down my alley, coming from Money Store and places like that, where we did a lot of business acquisition. So the plan was to build a lean team, no more than say 15 BDOs, and get this thing up to about 400 million over a 4 or 5 year period, and then decide what we want to do next, whether we're going to grow.
Oh, well, you make it sound so easy.
I
Just
know, right?
go up to 400 or 500 million.
Yeah,
And, at the time, like when you started, probably like 300 million used to get you into the top 10, I feel like.
absolutely.
Not anymore. I
No.
think number 18's at like 300 million or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is good. The further we could stretch it out, the better off. The stronger the industry itself, the better we all are, which I'm glad to see. Like even here at Nagel, I heard a number that 25% or so of the attendees this year are first-time attendees, and I haven't
Really?
heard that ever. So that's good. It's a good sign
I
that
like
we've got
that.
people jumping in. Yeah.
But I feel like the lenders at the top that are aggressive, they know what they're doing, they've been doing it a while, like they are getting bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard also a few shops like kind of fold recently.
Yeah, there's been, unfortunately, there's been about 4 that have dropped out. But on the same side, even a lot of the folks that I'm talking to here are starting up new shops. So I'm getting a lot of calls from guys like that just to talk about, some of the pitfalls that are in front of them when they're trying to grow, and how to communicate, the bumpiness of what it's going to be over the next couple of years when you're growing a business like this. I mean, I told Nicole, I said, look, getting to $100 million is going to be a real pain in the ass. Getting to 200 is going to be a half a pain in the ass. And then beyond that, it'd be a quarter forever and ever, because, it's SBA is difficult. So I did, she knew that it was going to be a little dysfunctional there for the first period of our growth. And actually my business model, the original business model was to be, let's get this thing up to say $60 million in the first year, have 3 or 4 BDOs, and really work on process.
Mm-hmm.
This is in 2019, right? At October-ish, that's when we were putting the business model together. And then, of course, 2020 came along and pandemic hits. And I stayed out of PPP and threw the business model out the window and started recruiting. Just went crazy. And we were down, I've got a lake house and stuff like that. So we were down getting out of the city, and I was literally walking through the woods and recruiting the entire, like for 6 weeks straight.
What switched to make you go into that sort of mode?
Opportunity. There were these little, I call them supernovas out there, right? That you had lenders that maybe were going to be fine for a while, but because of the pandemic, clammed up, had concentration issues or capital issues, or just flat out were scared to death of what was going to happen. So they stayed out of it. And that's how I picked up first handful of, high quality, high profile BDOs. And once you get that going on, as you know, it kind of breeds itself, and then people want to jump on board, especially if you put together a good process.
So instead of 60 million, what did you end up doing?
We did $127 million that first year. But most of it was closed on October 26th or whatever it was. Remember that date that you had to close it by for the CARES Act.
September 27th, I think.
Something like that. Maybe, September 27th.
No, that was a Sunday, but the Friday was the 25th. No, I don't.
Yeah, I don't remember. It was somewhere in there. But there was
funny.
that deadline. And
Yeah.
the good thing about that was it stressed everybody out, but we came out with a little bit of muscle memory. We knew we could do it, so there was no turning back at that point. We lost some people in the middle.
Yeah, well, it's growing pains, right?
Yes.
And when you grow at that rate, it's just even crazier. And your background, earlier days, you said money store, U.S. Bank. We were at Ready Capital, First Internet. These are all like kind of like top 10 sort of shops.
Yeah. I've been lucky enough to be at to learn, from the best, and be at these big shops that know how to produce at big levels. So it's a good pedigree to start something like that. Well, I couldn't have done it without Ready Cap, obviously. I couldn't have gone from U.S. Bank to First Internet Bank and just grown something from the ground up. Ready Capital was really good to kind of see when you're growing something, although that was different because they were on the foundation of the old CIT.
Right.
You still, there's certain things that you don't foresee until you actually experience it. So going back to Ready Capital, or going back to starting First Internet Bank, there were things that I could foresee certain points where we were going to have to change. Like to get to 100, we knew to get to 200, you had to change almost everything that you did, right? But you had to do it while you're doing the 100, because you have to, when we first started, everybody was doing everything. It's just push the ball up the hill, the rock up the hill. To get to 200, now you had to start defining roles a little bit better, because we were hiring people that came in and did, if they came from a small shop, they did everything.
Mm-hmm.
If they came from a larger shop, they did a widget. So we had
Mm-hmm.
people with the same titles now saying, here's what you're going to do. So that was a little bit disruptive.
Is that like in the closing department you're talking about,
Whatever.
or
Yeah. Packagers, closers,
Okay.
even, some of the folks in the servicing department, because we only had a few servicing people. Now we've got, a full massive staff, obviously.
So you went more into an assembly line approach?
Yeah. Had to. Yeah. We basically just, we had a skeleton crew, and it was build it and they will come almost. The deals started coming in pretty much out of the gate. So it was just, let's figure out how to get this done. Pam Scott joined during the middle of that recruiting. And Pam Scott, shout out to her, because she was an integral part of our growth and our ability to get a process in place. So I think we had our official grand opening on June 1st, 2020. That's where we had a process.
Oh, okay.
And a policy, not a policy, but guidelines, credit guidelines that we could, all live by and read and see. And that was our official kind of, okay, we're ready to go now. Before that, it was just, mayhem.
Yeah. And that's to be expected in the beginning. But like going back to what you said about like you couldn't have done this without first having that first stop where you and I intersected. Like what was a lesson you learned there that you kind of brought here?
The lesson with the key one was one I mentioned before, that you have to be working on the next level, the 250
What if you
level.
don't though?
Then you're going to hit a brick wall. Then you're going to blow up. You're going to jam yourself up, and then turn times are going to get longer. You're going to realize you don't have enough people. I was able to go in and tell, this is a little bit different because we already had a pretty good staff, but we were growing at Ready Capital, if you recall. Mm-hmm. But I was basically able to go tell Nicole, my boss, look, we're going to have to overstaff. We have to outrun our growth. We never want to. So it's going to be expensive. We're not going to be profitable for a while. So that's, and I could do that and show her why, and you could outrun it, and then do models. And I had good finance people that could help me do that. But knowing that the primary goal was to get talent in every position that we have, and get those all the way to the servicing side. Just build, have more closers than you need, have more underwriters than you need while you're growing, so that you don't slow down, that you never hit a place where your turn times are going longer. Because at Prime Plus 2 3/4, as you know, who we are and you are, you have to be good. 3. You have to be good. Yeah, I know you guys put the Prime Plus 3. We will eventually. We haven't stepped in that yet.
You got to lay out the tracks before the train comes.
You do.
And and to recruit talent, you have to be selling something, right? You can't be, a premium price product with an average process. Right. There's got to be something that makes you stick out. Mm-hmm. That's a big one, because, to get into top 10, like you've been in, in multiple shops, there's got to be something, some key to success that you know about that other shops don't, because a lot of people would like to get there, but you came in with a plan. You actually did it. You're top 10 in the country. That was the plan. You actually got there. It's a big accomplishment. What other keys to success to get there that you think you have that maybe other shops haven't quite thought of?
Yeah, and I talk to my peers in the industry a lot. It's important for leaders of groups like this to communicate and share ideas and stuff. But one of the things that I learned from others as well is have your message, and tell that message to your team consistently. Always. The message was always, here's what we're going to do. We're going to grow this thing. We're going to grow it not fast. We're going to grow it slow and steady. We're going to keep adding. And the end game was we were going to be doing $400 million with 15 BDOs, and we're going to have the best process in the industry. And that means that we don't compromise on turn times. We don't compromise on service, on communication, and things like that. So we're pretty picky on the people that we hire. We make sure that they know what they're getting into, that we don't have any assistants, except, of course, we have BDA type assistants. We call them sales specialists that help the BDOs get their deals into Encino and then help on the back end as well. But that process, again, ingraining that message, starting at the top with Nicole, hey, we're going to need X number of people to do this job, and to have 15 BDOs instead of 25 or 30 BDOs, we're going to have extra hands to help these folks and just, get the best BDOs we possibly can, and support them 100% so they can get out and do exactly what they need to be doing. It's not chasing down loan documents.
I think you're kind of nailing it, because I think it's some of these expenses or investments, a lot of banks who are more used to just managing the bottom line, they're maybe a little bit more apprehensive to take on to grow, but you kind of have to choose. You could be small and profitable, or you can be not profitable for a little bit, because like you said, laying out those tracks, those are expenses. And I've been at shops where it's like, oh, let's get the production first. Right. And then we'll hire. Then we can show, oh yeah, we need to go hire. But like, what's the ramp up time to actually go and do that and implement it and see the results?
Yeah. Who knows? It took us, I don't think we even started measuring our profitability. At first it was just process, knowing that to get prime plus 2 3/4. Oh, and by the way, back this up a little bit. So Nicole, if she watches this, she'll laugh, because when we jumped in, we were getting 120s on the secondary market, right? 118 to
Good old
120.
days.
Oh my God. Well, it's been a long time since we'd seen those. So that's how they got their first taste. David and Nicole got their first taste with these massive, this is great. I can't believe this. How much can we do? Can we do $1 billion? No. So that was funny. So it took a little learning curve, or just, it took a little getting used to those coming down, to the 110s and things that we're getting now, which are still acceptable. And those are the normal times. This is, if you look at the years we didn't sell at US Bank, obviously, but I was very aware of secondary market from Money Store and stuff like that, and premiums. And premiums over this period of time have always been in that 110 to 115 range. Getting way up there was uncommon.
The timing might have worked out for you though, because that's going to get people to invest more, and be more like supportive of your plan when you're making it rain.
Absolutely. Yeah, it made it a little bit easier. Yeah, made the pain a little bit less.
But the premiums now, you really think it's normal? Like, do you think, because if you're doing 250 over prime on a 10-year right now, you're getting, like, depending on the loan amount, but on a $2 million loan, you might be 7 points up, 7.
Yeah.
And on
there's some lows,
and you might be 8, 9, 10 on 25 years. So if you have an average premium of 8%, can you actually be profitable on that model?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And, obviously, when we'll get these prices, then I'll talk to Nicole about them, and we'll decide if it makes more sense at, the current rates to hold on to the deal for.
Even just hold you have that ability, possibly.
Of course. Yeah. We don't sell everything.
You're a bank,
we're a bank.
Like Money Store or
Correct.
The other one.
We operate a little bit like a non-bank, but we're definitely a bank.
You're operating the internet.
Right. We're operating the internet. That's who we are. First internet.
The SBA landscape is changing right before our eyes, and technology is a big driver of that. To think, just a decade ago, I was getting physical loan packages mailed to the office. We've come a long way. But a lot of folks are still getting tripped up on emailing documents back and forth. Files are too big, there's security concerns, and my personal favorite, I already sent you that. Now, I don't have those issues because I use Able. Able is a deal acceleration platform focused on driving efficiency and improving the borrower experience. They plug right into your existing LOS and solves the document chaos between your team and your borrowers. Borrowers get a place where they can collaborate on loan documents at any time, and your team can easily name, organize, and push documents with the click of a button. Welcome to the future. I encourage you to go to able.ai for more information and schedule your demo today. I got a fun question for you.
Yes.
Who's your favorite BDO on your team?
Who's my favorite BDO?
No, you don't have to answer that.
Yeah,
but
that's a hard one. No, I love these guys. They're all great. Yeah.
Think of a good BDO that you've worked with, and what makes them good.
Good BDOs are not only exceptional in being salespeople outside of the organization, they're just as good as being salespeople internally. And I've always preached that. Don't blow up the back office while you're out, schmoozing and walking in, because it's easy to walk in somewhere with a wheelbarrow full of money, right? If you got the access to give it, it's tougher to get the people that are doing the work for you to want to go pick up your loan. Mm-hmm. And the more you can create those friendships, because it takes human beings to do all of this. Every single step takes a human being. So if you are, let's just call it popular internally, you're going to be a hell of a lot more successful. And these guys they're great communicators. They follow up. Their loan packages come in just pristine. They're all the bad stuff's put on the front page with mitigations. And all SBA loans have something you have to talk about. It's right there on the front page, so that an underwriter picks it up. They know exactly what they're doing. The BDOs know their deals. Those are just fundamentals, but you would be shocked. And of course, you've been around long enough now, because SBA years are what, 4.5, 5 to 1, like dog years. So you and I are getting up there now very quickly. I'm way up there, but that is, those fundamentals are hard to come by, believe it or not, which is crazy. It shouldn't be.
To get a team like you have, do you have to go through a lot of BDOs and kind of figure out who's going to work, who's not, and essentially have churn to get to a team like this?
Yeah, especially when you don't have a product, a brand. First Internet Bank was not a brand when I came there. We made that brand with our performance. Mm-hmm. And once your team, and this goes not just BDOs, but credit folks and closers, once your team gets in and starts producing at a high level, they go get their friends. So recruiting here has been very easy. Once we got going, literally these folks, it took me a long time to get some of these guys like Sam Crialis, and I talked for a year before he came on board. He's one of the best in the country. Alan Peterson took a year and a half to get Alan Peterson over here, and he's jumped in and just kicking butt. But those guys are they're your evangelists out there and talking to their friends. This is where you want to be, and they know the type of individual that they want to be here, because that team, they collaborate. They're all friends. They talk every day. They don't call each other to complain every day, right? I mean, I've had that before too. These guys actually share ideas. And, they go these shows together, and they divide and conquer. And you don't have to recreate the wheel here. Everyone's got your back, which is kind of interesting. It's really lovely.
It's a really good sales team, actually. And a lot of them come to the BDO retreat.
Yeah.
In fact, last year,
they love it.
We opened by saying, "Welcome to the first Internet National Sales Meeting."
Yeah, I laughed about that. Yeah.
Alan had just got over, so we weren't expecting 4, but it ended up being a lot of people. Yeah. But no, it's a very solid team. Oh, and by the way, have you seen episode 74 of the Art of SBA Lending?
I don't believe so. I wouldn't know how to count them. So, but yes. Congratulations, by the way. 74, it's a big number.
That's Alan Peterson's episode.
Okay.
He brings it up every time I see him.
Okay. I'll have to check that out. Yeah.
So if I came to you, Mark, off camera, of course, and I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing what you did, looks fun, looks cool. I find a bank, I have the discussions. What do you think the pitfalls would be when starting an SBA shop and having those initial conversations with the bank?"
You see a lot of it. Everyone wants to get in because they see the benefits and the profitability and the premium income. If you don't, especially now that mortgage is bad or mortgage is tough, a lot of folks are getting out of mortgage and they want to jump into something else, and this is where they jump. It takes a lot of education to explain what the guarantee is to prospective lenders that want to jump in. And what you find, and I see it all the time, just because I'm a recruiter. I recruit. That's all I do, right? I talk. Even now that I'm full, I still talk to BDOs almost every week. Somebody, just to make sure that I know the folks that are out there. And you have to have a bench anyway, always. But once lenders start to see what it really is, and what do you mean we don't have any collateral on this $2 million deal? All those different things start to kind of add up and they get cold feet, or it's like, hey, this is just, maybe we don't want to do this. I won't go into all the details, you know what they are, but that's the biggest thing that I see is lenders getting to a certain point, and then deciding that this is not really what they wanted to do, or they're too small. I see a lot of banks that get into it, and they're, say, under $1 billion or so, and they're growing these departments up to $200 million and $300 million, and then you start having capital constraints. You start having concentration issues for the size of the bank. Those kind of things are hard to foresee unless you go in and start asking those hard questions. And those are obviously the questions that I had for David Becker and Nicole Lorch when we got up there. It's okay, we want to do this. This is what it's going to take, and is everybody cool with that? Are we going to have? Will we run out of capital? And David Becker looked me in the eye and said, "Well, you'll never outrun me on the capital side." And I said, "Okay, fair enough." I think that's when we shook hands. I'm coming. This is great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Who is this guy?
This is wonderful.
Something? Deep pockets.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that you have this chief credit officer named David
Bybee.
How important is like the chief credit officer in general to like the success of a shop?
Critical.
Is it like the thing?
No, it's one of the things.
Can you get to this level without a really good chief credit officer?
Not without a lot of pain. The chief credit officer has to buy into the wishes and the goals of the company, first of all and foremost, right? So, ours is institutional knowledge, understanding the goal of the company itself, and then blending into that tapestry. And David Bybee understands First Internet Bank, and he understands my history and his history kind of go hand in hand. He's also very intelligent, and can see the forest through the trees. That type of
those get in the weeds.
Yeah, exactly.
Get lost in there.
Yeah, weeds and trees and all that stuff.
Yeah, same. Sorry, I ruined your analogy. Go ahead.
That's okay. No, but he, that obviously, I've been lucky enough over the years to have very good chief credit officers, and realize that if you don't have that chemistry, sometimes it's good to just start over, break away, and do something different. And in this case, we were able to get David Bybee after talking to many possible candidates, and finally found that perfect mix of someone who's going to challenge you and ask a lot of questions. And the thing about David is he's obviously, like any other credit chief, he's got his appetites that we all do, right? So his fairway, let's call it, since we're doing analogies, is defined, and he's very good at defining what he likes to see. And back to being a good BDO understands that, you know what, I'm going to do that. If I can get it there, then this is going to be easy. And if you do, your deals come in, they get assigned, they get approved. And if you don't, then, you better, he's still okay if you're off the fairway, at least in the short grass, first cut, let's call it, but know exactly why that's okay. Know your deal. Back to that know your deal thing. Have your mitigations. Have the other strengths be a little bit better on that transaction. If you're looking at the C's of credit, right? If you've got if you have to explain three things that are, crunchy about the deal, then it's probably not a deal for us. I don't know about you guys, but going into this environment, and we knew it, we foresaw it going into the year, David and I both, that the average loan size was going to go up for us. And a lot of that was going to be because, not because that's what we were seeking out, but when you start getting these larger business acquisition type deals, the personal balance sheets are stronger, the corporate balance sheets are stronger. So interest rate hikes are that's not the biggest concern, because you're still making a lot of money, right? The bottom line is still solid. So if we're doing a $3 million deal that's light on collateral, we're going to want to see better cash flow and things like that, historical. Mm-hmm. So, and we are. So these are really nice, sophisticated deals that we feel comfortable in. Our average loan size is $1.2 million right now, which is large. And a lot of it's because we have not, maybe not yet, put in a smaller loan program.
Mm-hmm.
So it costs us the same thing, to do a $250,000 deal as a $2.5 million deal.
Right.
So we're not ready there yet because we're relatively small.
Yep.
I would get this wrong if I try to figure out how many employees we have today, but I'm going to say 58, and somebody's going to say, "No, Mark, we got more."
Well,
than
why don't you just say 50 to 60 or something?
Yeah, we got 50. Well, then that sounds even sillier. But no, it's 50 to 60.
Yeah,
It's
that's
something
true.
in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So did he come in and set the credit culture just based on his own personal?
No, we had several conversations before he came on board because he didn't want to come in and disrupt anything. He wanted to come in and enhance what we already had because we had a good thing going.
Okay.
Yeah.
He came in while you guys were already.
Yeah.
In
So
like
our credit. Yeah, we went through a couple iterations,
okay, right.
and we had some team leads, good guys, and they helped to create the culture, and that culture was what David came in and grabbed a hold of, and definitely added his own texture to that, and his fingerprints. But that's allowed us to clearly communicate to the BDOs what types of deals are going to get done. Those BDOs then can turn and go talk to their sources and say, these are the kind of deals that if you can go get these, we can get these deals done quickly. So they've been able to go train sources, and they have, you and I talked about this back when we worked together, but it was, becoming being almost symbiotic relationship, having almost a symbiotic relationship with your referral sources where you're responsible for a third of their income or more. Right. And it's constant telling them, hey, look, if you behave this way, you're going to be rewarded with quick turns and closed loans. And then that activity breeds additional activity. It breeds additional activity. So it just keeps growing.
That clarity from the chief credit officer is super helpful because BDOs want to know what they can get done. So
just tell me. Yeah.
I found like chief credit officers, sometimes they don't want to do that because they want to make it seem like everything's open. Like,
just bring it. We'll
consider
see.
that. We'll take a look. We'll do that, and we're open. And then you bring it in, and then we're like, you're okay. Let's look a little further, and then you get to the point where it's like, no.
Yeah.
And then we all just wasted a bunch of time.
Yeah, we don't have a pre-screening format. We don't do. I mean, we have a document that the BDO puts together. It's pretty simple. It's a spreadsheet. Put the bad stuff on. But our deals, the sales specialists get the deal into the system, into Encino. And then Chris Stites, who's he's our team lead. He doesn't underwrite deals, but he's got up to whatever $2.5 million, and then everything else goes above to David. But Chris is really good about if there's 30 deals in queue waiting to be assigned, he'll go through them and determine, hey, there's an eligibility issue. He'll reach out to the BDO and say, hey, if you could tweak this or get the seller carry, whatever it is. I don't think I've seen more than 2 or 3 declines at the point that the underwriting has already taken place.
Right.
We'll grab a deal, so once it gets into credit, we've got a 90% approval rate, probably, maybe even higher now. So, it's all about, and we talked about this too. You want to get that conversion rate. You want to get 90% of your deals approved, and 90% of those 95% of those commitment letters signed, and close, 90% of those. So that's about as good as you can get in this industry because deals fall out for various reasons. But we've been able to do that, and that first piece up front, getting out the deals that maybe the BDO missed something, or maybe it's just the deal is just a little too tight or a little too thin. It just saves time and energy. Now, the downside of that is he may pull it and not really have the whole story and say, I don't like this deal. Then you have to kind of go back in and resell that loan, which, and again, he's very good at having those conversations. But either way, I think it's healthy.
I just heard you say you have a team lead signing up to 2.5. That's kind of like
might be 2 million. I think it's 2 million.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever.
2 to 3 million.
Yeah. 50 to 60.
It's still okay. Well, but everything above that is a chief credit officer. No, you don't have loan committee?
No loan committee.
That sounds great.
It is nice.
But what about like the capacity of the credit people? I've been at shops where everything runs through the chief credit officer, and there's got to be a limit to what they can take on before you've got to kind of redo the credit. Have you had those sort of like thoughts or strategies, or is 400 the number where it's just manageable with the current type of credit
especially
structure?
at $1.2 million average loan size. So, if we're funding 40 million, we're not closing 40 loans, right? On average. So we're closing less than that. Chris's capacity is fine. We're going to add a couple underwriters if you're looking. We need some good underwriters. We need a couple more right now. So we've got those requisitions out there because the team that we have, they're incredible. And again, they self-recruited themselves too. So that's, once you get some good ones, they go get their friend to say, this is great over here. And we've been able to do that. They are running close at this point because when I keep thinking there's going to be a slowdown and there's not. And I don't know exactly what's driving that. I don't know if if the demand is flat and the supply is tightening up, or if the demand is actually increasing. It seems like what would we do? 27 billion as an industry last year. That's a big number.
It's up.
That's still up way above pre-pandemic. We were doing 18, 19 billion back then. So it just kind of puts that into perspective that, we're the SBA, and what it probably is that, and they talked about it here at Nagel in one of the early sessions, general sessions, about the fact that, as the conventional side tightens up, it opens up more. So we get to see more quality and people lean more on their SBA departments.
Yeah. I want to ask you this, Mark. Everyone has strengths and weaknesses. What do you think your biggest strength is?
Communicating the vision, being consistent about what the grand goal is so that everyone can see it. Calling out successes when you see them, making sure people feel like they're, and this goes across I don't just manage BDOs. I talk to every single person in the bank when I can, but just making sure the team's all in the same plateau and they know what the goals are, and we make sure that they have the resources they need to get the job done, and get paid for it.
So leadership.
Yeah, leadership. And it took a long time. I've made every single mistake that you could possibly make over the years. I was god awful when I was at US Bank, probably. But that was a different ball game. And, we had a lot of internal referrals, and to be able to create something where all of your business is coming externally, it's just a whole different set of skills.
Yeah. No, it's hard.
Mindset.
By the way, when you were at US Bank, you were there for what, 6-7 years?
15.
I should have. Where's my researchers? You're fired. Just kidding. We don't have researchers. Damn. So, yeah. And that was before and after like the 2008 situation, like around that?
During. Yeah. So I got to US Bank. When did Money Store? I think Money Store went away in 99-ish, maybe 98.
It got sold, right?
Yeah, they stopped. The secondary market, actually, a little history. At the time, the secondary market was in the premiums around 14-15%. And then they dropped to about 6% just very quickly. And so a lot of the non-bank lenders, Heller Financial, Money Store, I could go on, but I won't list them all. But it just got more expensive because they had these big warehouse lines that they were drawing the money from. They weren't banks; they didn't have deposits. So, they at the time they had a warehouse line, a couple of them, but one was with First Union Bank, and the Money Store got First Union basically just took over the whole bank, not because of the SBA, but because of the home mortgage side of things. So they bought us, and part of that process was then blending us into First Union, which I believe then went to, I may be getting this wrong, one of them, WAMU became Wells Fargo. Right. All those banks are gone.
Right.
Yeah, and but so there was a lot of consolidation back then.
And so is the Money Store, but the legend lives on.
Oh, absolutely. But it's funny if you look around just downstairs, and a lot of the leadership at pretty much all the top lenders started there.
Why is that?
I don't know if, back then, I don't know what the level of the program was, but it was in its infancy stage. And, Money Store was doing 900 million, something like that, 7 to 900 million. And we were number one. We were the Live Oak of back then. Of course, Live Oak's much bigger than we ever got, but it fell off pretty quickly after that. And so just sheer numbers of individuals that went through it at that time and really knew how to use the SBA guarantee. We did a lot of business acquisitions. We did some real estate. We did a lot of, some BDOs did a lot of hotels and things back in the hotel lending days where it was just, everybody did it. So that group that were all BDOs are now, operating these. You could name all the big ones, and they come from there. They came from there.
I mean, but to do 900 million in, the 90s is kind of comparable to doing 1.7 billion today.
Yeah, good point.
It might even have been more impressive. You had smaller loans. You had, the inflation aspect.
Yeah, we couldn't do a $5 million loan. Or I think the max was $2 million at that point.
I think the Money Store might hold be like the GOAT.
Could have been. And that's back when you could do piggybacks too. That was not against the law, where the bank would actually have a lien in front of the SBA.
Oh,
imagine that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
People are doing it the other way now, pari passu.
Well, yeah, you can't. It has to have that shared lien now. You can't do that anymore. They made that against the law.
Did you have a mentor when you were in your early days?
David Bartram.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, David Bartram was at U.S. Bank. He was he's the one that hired me to come over, and he's the one that took me out of the BDO ranks and made me a regional sales manager at the time, a couple years into my tenure there. And then after that, John Handmaker brought me out of PNC Bank, brought me into SBA Lending. So he was before David Bartram, but John Handmaker definitely was one of my mentors that kind of set me in the right direction, especially for the kind of stuff we do now. Most stuff I do now, it's, what would John do? What would David do?
So if John and David had a baby.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
But what specifically did you learn from each of, can you give me one main thing you learned from each of those guys?
Yeah. John was very, John brought me over and, he said, and I told you this too, make yourself larger than life, be big, communicate, just get out. Back then we didn't have LinkedIn and stuff like that. So it literally was get out of the office and go knock on doors, get out, be where the deals are, just be everywhere so that when something's happening, you're there. And it's the same way it is now. It's just, you have the ability to kind of hit, bigger audiences with less physicality, having to actually be in the place. So that was big with him. David Bartram was very big on you being able to describe your approach, so that he heard you talking about how you're going to do your job and how you're going to approach your job and how you're going to manage, and then actually do that and concentrate on, okay, I got to stick to this methodology. Don't get off track. So David Bartram he kept me focused on looking forward and never getting sidetracked with all the goofy stuff that happens when you're trying to operate at that kind of level. And then John was just big on, being everywhere at all times and looking big, right?
Okay.
Just being everywhere at the same time so that back then it was signage. Put signs everywhere.
Oh,
just signs. So
financed by.
Yeah. So people would see and say, "Oh, I see you must be killing it. You got deals all over the place." So those are the tricks they taught me, and just sales.
Last question.
Yes, sir.
Then I'm gonna let you go to dinner.
All right.
Because it's pretty crazy time in our world with SBA, with the SOP and the process and all this stuff. Yeah. Has any of that actually impacted your business plan?
Not yet. Even some of these changes, and you would get the same answer from my peers downstairs. We're everybody's kind of just doing what we've always done, because you never know what the next administration is going to come in and do, and right now we could still do what we've always done and operate and succeed and feel comfortable in doing things like, tracking equity injection, just simple things like that, why would you not do that? So our business model has not changed one bit. I'm very optimistic that the program will survive and continue for several years. I mean, I'm all in, right? I don't expect there to be any major disruptions, any decisions that the SBA makes that ends up being probably not the best decision. They almost always reverse it, and that's good. So I'm confident, especially given the support and the representation of Nagel. These guys do a great job on the Hill and making sure that our voices are heard. And as long as that continues, we're going to be fine. That's the most important part. The best years I've ever had as a lender were when everybody was doing okay, right? When everybody's kicking butt. And I think we're at that point right now. You're starting to see, even though you're seeing a different leadership board, from you got the tops, but kind of that middle range of folks, you're seeing all these new names pop in there, and that just makes me happy. I like to see some of these lenders hopping into those levels because I look at each lender. I call it the 5-year metaphorical window. It's not really 5 years, but you kind of get these lenders that come in. Eventually, you get too big, you get too much concentration, you run out of capital, somebody buys you. So, I feel like we're at the beginning of that window, even though we're 4 years old. It just, feels like we've been here for about a year. It just went like that. But I feel like, we don't have, our portfolio is not big enough to have any major issues. Our delinquencies are fine. We expect to see some issues because of working capital just disappearing with inflation and rates going up. But in general, we're good. We're going to be good.
We're good. Yeah.
We're all going to be good.
Well, it's definitely an interesting time, and ultimately it will be good as well. But I have to tell you, this new SBA approval process is killing me.
Yeah. Well, I know you didn't go to the session down there, but there was a huge applause when, they talked about figuring out a way to make that a little bit easier. It's just, it's our PLP status. No one has PLP status anymore. It's just crazy.
It's crazy, man. Yeah. Good. Well,
so eventually we'll get it back. I know we will.
So any big plans for 2024 at the internet?
At the internet, just First Internet Bank.
Doing what you're doing, looking to maybe some small.
Yeah, we'll see. We're still growing, and just because the newer BDOs that are on are getting their groove. So the plan is to have everybody do north of 20, and we're close to that. But that means there's room for growth. So we got to make sure we got enough people to do the job, and that's the biggest challenge. And once we get that, get comfortable, I know that my boss and her boss, Nicole and David, I just know they're going to knock on the door and say, "Hey, you ready to hit the gas?" And so I just got to be ready to do that.
The road to $1 billion.
I don't know if it'll be 2024, but I know that David Becker, whenever he gets on the investor calls, quarterly calls, Wall Street and stuff, I'll give him a number and he'll add 30% to it. It's like, God, all right, whatever.
All right. Yeah. The road to $1 billion. Here it goes.
Road to $1 billion, baby.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for doing this. This
Pleasure.
was a blast. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode of the Art of SBA Lending. And if you have any feedback or suggestions, email me at ray@artofsba.com. Until next time, ta-ta.